we have another woman down. That makes me sad. It makes me sad for my female design students, because what can they aspire to? And there are a lot of women that are in design, right? Again, what can they aspire to? We're not even going to get into race, right? And what our Black students can aspire to, what our Hispanic students can aspire to, what our Asian students can aspire to. And so for that reason, I'm sad.
Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never ran, said no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Hello, my darlings, it's Dion Dean. Welcome back to another video. Big news in the fashion industry. Virginie Viard has stepped down as creative director of Chanel. And my phone has been alight. Let me tell you something. Have friends around you that keep you accountable. Although I'm no longer in the classroom, my friends are like, okay, so you go talk about Chanel. What's going on? We need to hear your input. And then thanks to those of you that reached out, my community who's just like, we want to hear from you. What do you have to say, Professor? So before we get started, some qualifications. I have my undergrad in clothing, textiles, and merchandising, my master's in culture and educational policy studies. I'm all but dissertation with a higher education all but dissertation in a doctorate of higher administration, and I have a graduate certificate in merchandising. Why am I saying this? Because I'm going to be speaking today from the position of a retail professor and not necessarily a fashion person. I say I'm not a fashion person, but then I keep on talking about fashion. But I want to speak to it in terms of business and not necessarily the creative aspect. Of course, we'll be dipping and diving into the creative aspects, but the business side of it, the business moves, and why this happened per business is what I want to focus on. So one of the things that I like to do in my fashion chats when you walk into my classroom is, before we get started, I always in my classes, let me say that as well, I have been teaching retailing and merchandising, fashion merchandising, since 2015. I left the classroom where I was lead faculty at a fashion school, or fashion program rather, in 2019, and stopped teaching online in 2021. So I've been teaching almost 10 years, but I've been in education since 2005. So as an academic advisor, as a college and career coach, this has been my jam. So that being said, whenever we start to get into a complicated topic or we start having a discussion, I always like to reiterate to my students that I want them to be able to have an intellectual academic discussion. So I always suggest books if they want further knowledge. So before we get into the tea, I have some books. I'm going to leave the Amazon link. I have a fashion book link, and it has all of the books that I recommended to my students throughout the years. But as it pertains to this topic, I actually left this in the community last weekend. This is Kaiser Karl, the life of Karl Lagerfeld. So if you have an interest in learning more about Karl Lagerfeld as a man and as a brand, right? Yesterday we went to Macy's and we saw the brand Karl Lagerfeld, but just his life, his times, and how he went from, I always get Celine and Chloe mixed up, but he designed for Celine, Chloe? One of the C's he's designed for, as well as Chanel, and we all know. And then if you want to know more about Chanel and Coco Chanel, which is her name, but Coco Chanel, then you can read Coco Chanel, An Intimate Life. And then, of course, if you want to know about Karl Lagerfeld from a more intimate point of view, and I didn't realize this until I read this book, how close he and Andre Leon Talley were. Come on, there's nothing to say. This is a book that you should be reading anyway, just for the fashion knowledge, but the fashion history and the parties and the friendships that he had, specifically with Karl Lagerfeld, and how close they were, and how a lot of times, a lot of what came down the runway was inspired by Andre Leon Talley. If you've read the book, you know. So this is another book to read. And then last but not least, and this is actually one that I'm reading now, hence why it has a bookmark in there, Gods and Kings. I've had this on my shelf for years, but it's such a lengthy read, and I wanted to make sure that it was something that I could go straight through. This is Gods and Kings, The Rise and Fall of Alexander McQueen and John Galliano. For those of you who are new, have never heard my point of view, John Galliano is my #1 all-time favorite fashion designer, close second to Cristobal Balenciaga. And so I just wanted some more insight on what was going on during a time when I was in college. I graduated in the early 2000s during the height of Tom Ford at Gucci. I say the golden years. It really was the golden years. Tom Ford at Gucci, Marc Jacobs at Vuitton, John Galliano at Dior, Alexander McQueen at Givenchy. It was just like, oh, it was such an exciting time in fashion. And so just going back in time and reliving some things. So this is actually my summer read. I'm reading this right now. So I will leave a link to these four as well as some other books. And so how many minutes in is this before we get to the topic at hand? So how do I feel? That's been the question. Like, what do you think? Not just like, how do you feel, but what do you think? Because those in my circle know I'm going to give it like an academic spin. I'm sad. I really am sad. And I have my notes down here. Okay. So if I'm looking down, I'm looking at my notes. I'm not ignoring you guys. I'm sad. There are not too many women at the helm of these design houses. We have Maria Grazia Chiuri at Dior. Chloe has a female design creative director, a new one. Please forgive me for not knowing her name. Hermes, what is her name? Has a female creative director. We no longer have Sara Burton at McQueen. Claire Wright Geller at Keller. I always get it wrong. Is no longer at Givenchy. So we have another woman down. That makes me sad. It makes me sad for my female design students, because what can they aspire to? And there are a lot of women that are in design, right? Again, what can they aspire to? We're not even going to get into race, right? And what our Black students can aspire to, what our Hispanic students can aspire to, what our Asian students can aspire to. And so for that reason, I'm sad. My first point, so that's my true feelings. I am sad at another woman leaving the helm, because I don't want to say my fear, unless something really radical changes, I feel like they're going to put another white male in that space. Take that as you want to take it. Okay. My first thought is that I don't think she had a chance. I think that, and when you read the Karl Lagerfeld book, Karl Lagerfeld was such a polarizing character. He was larger than life. He was larger than Chanel. He was Chanel. He was larger than Chanel. I would say he was larger than Chanel, to the point where people really don't even know anything about Coco Chanel in her life, but they know about Karl Lagerfeld. And this is not talking about, going to Paris and going to Rue Cambon and seeing her apartment. Absolutely. But as far as the giant of our time, Karl Lagerfeld was it. The white ponytail, choupette, the black suit with the white, like, he was larger than life. So for her to step into that role, and I think that he actually selected her, because she's been at Chanel for 30 years, I think. He selected her for that role for a reason. What that reason is, we will never know. It could be to carry out his designs, because there's no doubt in my mind that Karl Lagerfeld left sketch upon sketch upon sketch upon sketch. And so he probably left it in her care, knowing that she would carry on his legacy, knowing that she would add her own spin. But I guarantee 30 years of being around him, being under his tutelage, she knew exactly his aesthetic and what he wanted to see at Chanel. So there's no doubt in my mind with that. That being said, I think that we expected her to be another Karl, and the fact that she didn't speak to press, I feel like she still doesn't speak to press. But she doesn't speak to press. She's not out there in the front. She's not going to parties. She's not taking pictures with models per se, the way that he did. I think that we took that as like an affront, and that really is just not who she is. She's not Karl Lagerfeld. So I think in that aspect, even though I say I'm not fashion, I don't think we gave her a shot. Karl was in that role since 1982, 83. That's a very long time to grow into that role, okay? We gave her, 4 or 5 years to take over Chanel, which is a behemoth of a brand. So in that aspect, I don't know who they would have put in that position. We're going to get into that though. Who they would have put in that position that would have pleased us all, okay? And And so we didn't really get, I have a point here, we didn't really get to see her point of view. Again, I think that she's still going through Karl's sketches. He passed away, what, 4 or 5 years ago? He'd been in the industry since he was a teenager. How many sketches did he probably, how many books, how much did he have for her to sift through? She'd probably never get through that in a lifetime, right? And we want to give her 5 years. So again, I don't think we really got to see her point of view yet. I feel like after probably maybe a decade, we would have seen the true Virginie come out. I have Chanel, yep, behemoth of a brand. So people, I say having a point of view, right? And people are bringing up Pharrell and this, then. Pharrell has a point of view, okay? And so they're talking about him, and I'm going to get into this later, but people are talking about Pharrell and this, that, and other, and how it's like Pharrell and blah. Pharrell was somebody before he got to Vuitton. I'm not saying that Virginie was not, okay? But he already had a bona fide brand from the music industry, from fashion, from work, from doing collaborations with Marc Jacobs and Chanel. He had a point of view. Virginie, she is new to our eyes, to the point when he appointed her, we were like, who's that? What? And for me, studying retail, I was really like, I don't know if that's gonna work. I don't know if the customers are gonna trust her with the couture. I don't know, right? And then lastly on this point, ready to wear is just hard. In this space on social media, we talk about the bags and the shoes and the jewelry, which they do make a lot of money from. But let me tell you something. Chanel couture is where the money's at, okay? And there's no doubt in my mind that something has happened with the couture clients and ready to wear sales. And they probably pressed her too hard, and that's why she stepped down. I feel like it was the pressure and the press of ready to wear. That was it. Bags, shoes, they know middle class, upper middle class folks like us, we're the ones that's gonna be, we ain't wearing ready to wear, okay? We're not doing it. But those couture clients and ready to wear, that is a very hard customer to satisfy. And I feel like she may not have felt appreciated in her ready to wear designs and couture. And that could have had something to do with it, but I don't know. I'm not there. All right, so who's next? So you know, our fashion Bible, Diet Prada. That was the first place I went. Because listen, you can say what you want, okay? But if Diet Prada has not confirmed it, I'm not believing it. And Diet Prada confirmed it. So I went into the comments, as we do, and there were a few names. That came into the mix. The first one, Pierpaolo Piccioli, former creative director of Valentino. We've had this conversation. We had this conversation when we talked about him leaving. I'll put the video somewhere here. Pierpaolo at Chanel. I wrote down my notes. He's a fan favorite. He's a fan favorite because of how beautiful his designs are, how he designs for every woman, how he feels specifically about Black women. We love him. There's not a Black woman out here. It's just like, we ride or die for Pierpaolo. He has a very distinct point of view. When you see his designs, when you see his designs, you know his designs, you know his touch, okay? So here's my thing. Here's my reason why I don't know if it's going to be Pierpaolo. And we're talking about ready wear. If this falls out again, just, give me a block. Here's why I don't know if it's going to be Pierpaolo. When you read the books, when you read specifically the Coco Chanel book, you're going to learn about, and I'll see if I can find, I have a Dior book, so I'm going to see if I can find it. I'll link it. You're going to learn about Coco Chanel versus Christian Dior. And in the 1950s, 60s, my fashion historians, please give me a bly if I don't get this right. 1950s, 60s, coming out of the war, Christian Dior was his designs are very feminine, a lot of material, the cinched waist, the new look, very feminine, very hourglass, lots of fabric. And that was one thing that Chanel was just like, no, because she was a boss. Okay, so I always say that Coco Chanel is the antithesis to Dior. So whereas Dior is very fluid and feminine and cinched waist and just ultra feminine, Dior is not, right? The box jacket, the heavy tweeds, the slim waist, if you've ever seen the box suit, there's no hip, there's no waist, it's straight up and down. She was very masculine, shoulder pads. That was Coco Chanel's style. That was the aesthetic. So that's the aesthetic of Chanel, and Dior has their own aesthetic. Again, why I always advise my students, especially my design students, to read these books so that you can put a aesthetic to a name. So that being said, Pierpaolo Piccioli's designs, to me, I think that Chanel would stifle him. I think that the way he designs is so beautiful, so feminine, the fabrics that he uses, the textures that he uses. I can't remember ever seeing him using tweed at Valentino. Again, give me a blind, okay? He very well could. You probably pull him out. Yeah, he did in 2016. I don't know. But Chanel aesthetic is very boxy, very masculine, heavy materials, no silks, no shantung, no lace, no eyelets, no feminine breasts, no nothing. Straight up and down, okay? Just think of the Chanel box suit. So that's the only reason why I feel like it would not be him, because I don't feel like it fits his design aesthetic. Number 2, Be Still My Heart, John Galliano. What they keep on, let me tell you something. We are so traumatized by John Galliano being fired from Dior from his tirade back in, what was it, 2005? Almost 20 years ago, maybe? I don't know. But he was fired from Dior because he had some addiction issues, and those addiction issues led him to go on a tirade. You can Google it. But he was let go from Dior. We're still not over it. We still want him back at Dior. We're like, please, give us. And so I think that nostalgia, how iconic he is. He just did the fall, winter Margiela show with Pat McGrath, The Glass Skin. That was his show. He's John Galliano all by himself. So the reason why, again, he has a more feminine aesthetic. Even if you think about the show that he just put on, the corseted waist. No, Coco Chanel would not. No, she wanted freedom. Okay, no corseted waist. No fit. That's not her aesthetic. That's not the brand's aesthetic. And so I don't think that it will be John Galliano. The only reason I foresee it being him, if at all, I think he's fine at Margiela. I think he's good. Is I believe that the Chanel needs, or what we want from Chanel, I think what we want from all brands, we're tired of the musical chairs, okay? We want somebody that's going to die at that house, okay? Because we don't have that anymore. We have people going from here to here to here. And so, especially with Pierpaolo, like, I really did not foresee him leaving Valentino. Like, I thought he was going to die in the chair, so to speak. And I feel like we want John Galliano at the top somewhere big, where he's gonna die in the chair. He's gonna take over the house. And again, you have to be able to carry the weight, because some people are saying, oh, they need to invest in new talent, and new talent can't handle the weight of Chanel. Chanel is a big boy. Chanel is probably the biggest boy in the fashion industry. You can't throw somebody. No, that can't be. No, that would be cruel. That would be cruel. He has already shown, well, I shouldn't say that, right? Because he cracked under the pressure, Dior, with, but as a changed man, I feel like he could carry the weight of Chanel. And John Galliano's clout is just as high as Chanel's. Just like Karl Lagerfeld. Like, remember I said a polarizing figure? Like, you need somebody who can, like, go toe to toe with the brand. John Galliano could go toe to toe with the brand. Hedi Slimane. Hedi Slimane is currently the creative director of Celine. His name has been thrown around, and I honestly could see it. However, because he has already worked with 2 French houses. That's another thing too. Pierpaolo has worked with an Italian house, totally different field. John Galliano has worked with a French brand. It would work. Hedi Slimane, 2 French brands, Saint Laurent and Celine, right? So he can jump right in there with the French. My only thing, to me, Hedi Slimane, I don't know him. I've actually never seen an interview with him. To me, he's a little rank. I don't mean stinky. He's the one that dropped the eaves off of Saint Laurent and took the accent mark off of Celine, okay? So he goes in and he wrecks shop. He's like, this is my Saint Laurent. This is my Celine. Forget a history. When he took eaves off of Saint Laurent, people just like, oh, no, he didn't. Oh, yes, he did. Then he went to Celine. He took the accent off the Celine, changed the font. He did the same thing. Changed the font at Saint Laurent, changed the font at Celine. Is Chanel going to allow him to bring that energy over there? I don't think so. I shouldn't say I don't think so. I don't know. Because remember, Chanel's not owned by anybody, right? They're not a part of LVMH or Kering Group or Tapestry, or they're not a part of anything. They're all to themselves. I don't know. That part I don't know. I feel like he'd go in there and wreck shop and they'd be like, who are you talking to, boo? So I don't know. His name has been thrown around though. And I think he's one of those people that could die in the chair. And I hate saying it like that, sounds horrible. But that would be his brand. Like, that would be it. I could see him being a Chanel, and that's it for him. That's where he'll live out his days. People have said Pharrell's not, no. Pharrell is good where he's at, okay? And Pharrell knows men's. He knows men's and he knows unisex. I don't know if he could do Chanel couture. I don't know. Oh, Pierpaolo, that's one thing I was going to say. A tick for him, couture. If there's anybody who could bring in money, it would be Pierpaolo. Because Pierpaolo can do couture. The ready to wear, he would kill it. He can do couture. So that's one reason why I'm like, it could be him. Because when you talk about dollars and cents, remember, you have to think about the couture customer and the ready-to-wear customer and what they want, right? They don't want regular schmegular, wearing a little bag, a little earring. Like, that's not them, right? It's a totally different mindset. And they would pay for Pierpaolo. I would pay for, if Pierpaolo goes to Chanel, what am I going to do? Am I going to buy a $10,000 bag? I just might. No. Next up, Sara Burton, former creative director for Alexander McQueen. Fan favorite. I would love it. I don't think it's going to be a woman. I don't know. And I don't know if Sara Burton, I feel like she has such a strong sense, such a strong design aesthetic coming from Alexander McQueen. I don't want that from her. Like, I want her to stay in that space. You know what I mean? People have also said, well, not all, but I don't want to say people, allegedly, like, it's Diet Prada's comment section. It's not, Forbes. People have said Olivier Rousteing from Balmain. Could he carry the weight of a Chanel? He's carried the weight of Balmain. He was 21 when he got the spot. I don't know. I feel like he could go toe to toe. He stayed making profits. So they say. Number 5. This is my last one. I had to leave the best for last. That doggone Marc Jacobs. Marc Jacobs. I haven't heard him ever say that he's retired. He left. I don't know why he left Vuitton. Maybe I need to pull up some interviews on YouTube. Maybe they're out there as to why he left Vuitton when he left. He has his own eponymous brand. I feel like that's the only one that could do the job. I do. I feel like he carried the weight of Vuitton 16 years, 13 years, something like that. He still carries, let's have an honest conversation. He still carries the weight of Vuitton to the point where they pulling stuff out of the archives and they're making this bag and that bag and bringing it up. The man been out of the job how long? And he's still pulling stuff out of the archives. So Marc Jacobs, I feel like he would get to Chanel, tear it right up. Tear it right up. And he has a loyal fan base who are waiting. Now the only thing is, I don't believe Vuitton did couture when he was over, because for those of you that don't know, Marc Jacobs introduced ready-to-wear to Vuitton. They were just a bag brand until he came along, okay? So he launched ready-to-wear for the brand, from women's and men's, I think. I don't know about couture from him. I don't feel like I've ever seen couture from him. And so on that front, I don't know, because again, Chanel is a big ready-to-wear couture house. Again, we get locked up in the bags. That's not it, boo. If you've ever watched the couture shows, that's where the money is. So that would be the only thing. But could he carry the weight? So yeah, I feel like Pierpaolo, out of this list, Pierpaolo, John Galliano, Marc Jacobs. I just feel like Hedi Slimane, if he gets in there, I think it might be musical chairs. I don't know. Who are we to know? We're just going to be sitting here with bated breath, waiting, hoping, and praying. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please leave me a thumbs up if you did. I would love to come on here and give you my fashion opinions that are undergirded in the academy, right? And research. But yeah, a little of this was a little bit of this, I'm spitting. A little bit of research, a little bit of fashion, a little bit of my opinion, and again, it's fashion, it's fun, it's retail. They're gonna choose who they're gonna choose. I'm not a Chanel ready-to-wear person. I'm not a Chanel couture customer. So for me, I'm not even really a Chanel bag customer. So I'm just on here talking. But I think it's exciting. I think that the thought of somebody new is exciting. I would hope that it's a woman. But yeah, exciting times in fashion. So we have a bunch of creative directors that are looking for jobs, and we don't know who's going to fill this one. So, and it'd be interesting. She was at Chanel for over 30 years, so it'd be interesting to find out if she's going to do anything. She may just retire and be straight. I'm sure that Chanel check is quite healthy. All right, my darlings, thank you guys again for watching. Again, give me a thumbs up. Let me know you enjoyed this content. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Come on now, we'd love to have these conversations. And then also, if there are any other topics that you'd like for me to cover as it relates to the industry, again, I don't consider myself a fashion person. We're definitely going to be doing the Macy's video. So you should have watched the Macy's video that I put up in the community so that we could have a educated discussion on the rise and fall of Macy's. Anyway, let me go. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.